Besides Spinosaurus, Giganotosaurus was the other commonly cited possibility of dethroning T-Rex. This is the Carnegie Collection's Giganotosaurus, and to this day is one example of how paint apps in the past could really reach very pleasing levels of application. Or on the flip side, how paint apps of today can really sink to really low depths of despair. Now there are different styles to the patterning. The main one here, the odd one there, and here too, and yet it looks natural and something special. There are no hard borders to the pattern at all. The grey under the coat still appears to be layered. And going up into the neck, you see more of this patterning. Then you see the red splashes on the keratinous bits. The eyes are carefully painted. The teeth too. Now, not much complexity in the mucous tissues, but when you had something like this, you really felt you were getting a special dinosaur, as indeed it was, way back, as a dinosaur that stood as a tall and strong contender for biggest theropod dinosaur. And that's one thing I really miss about the old Carnegies. In general, when you received a new release, you'd feel it was getting as good a paint job as could be done then. Today, well, it's really sad sometimes. Oh, and a bonus, it actually stands on 2 feet, albeit a little precariously. Number 4 is a really amazing dinosaur. Perhaps the most accurate Spinosaurus ever made. We have this monstrosity. Now where should I start? The tripod, the curved tail, the pronated hands, that ugly skull with these evenly homogeneous teeth, and these enormous bug eyes. And yet all of this adds to the appeal of this very traditional picture of an Allosaurus with a sail stuck on, and one of my most precious vintage models that truly captures the essence of the time. Just look at these feet. And of course, always one to keep up to date, Carnegie then gave us this offering. I think you can see the updates. The skull now is the correct form, with the crest, the kink in the upper jaw. And other details include this evenly rolled scutes. And for the paint apps, there's also that inconsistency you see in other models, with some very nice faded skin patterns here. And then a crudely painted sail, which is a pity considering you'd expect this to be the major visual highlight. I can imagine this dinosaur wading out from an embankment, looking down for telltale signs of huge fish. Now there's been much ado of course since Ibrahim dropped his Spinosaurus interpretation, and I have little doubt that had the Carnegie line continued, it would have given it a shot. A model of a single dinosaur like this has a certain abstraction, and you could just imagine what you would. A diorama actually has a scene that makes you think about real dinosaur interactions with the environment and with each other. First, you have this herd of Deinonychus, If ever there was a poster boy for trying to work within limitations, in this case a 1 to 40th scale and the technology of the time, this is it. Look at how they run together, just like they would in a pack. Each one, small as it is given a different pose so you can differentiate them as individuals. Or just look at those short skulls and again the bug eyes. And not to mention the way oversized scales. But it was quite delightful that for the limitations of the time, they really tried. They even have what look like dewlaps or wattles on the neck. You can see in these small figures how the Carnegie line tried to give us the best it could at the time, with detail like that which wouldn't be appreciated by most young children. Then this other diorama, and I still absolutely love this today. You have these two Dilophosaurus. Of course, we could take the more crude interpretation of fighting, but I never thought of them in such high-level conflict, but rather bickering or frolicking in play. It's also nice that you're not limited to where you place them in relation to each other, so you have some flexibility. Number 2, alright, this is one big cheat. It is basically all the Carnegie sauropods I have. First we have this little prosauropod, Plateosaurus, which is a nice representation of an animal that was always in every book I had as a child. You see here the bipedal rearing pose, you see in many depictions. This thing is really quaint. You can see the detail that's been sculpted here. And again that bug-eyed look. And where it really looks good is next to the rest of the 1 to 40th scale sauropods, to give you an idea of scale. And so then we come to the must-have trio of Apatosaurus, Diplodocus, and Brachiosaurus, the original big boys. And you can just appreciate the sheer size of these mothers, and the weight too. Not only does this show you 3 very different bioplants, and it was way back when dinosaurs were given really exaggerated weight estimates. The more compact form of the Apatosaurus, the very, very, very long and almost sinuous form of the Diplodocus. Then the macronarian posture of the Brachiosaurus. I'll always remember the number of 70 tons associated with Brachiosaurus. Nowadays, of course, we know it was probably around 28 tons. The detail for these is typical for models of the time, but you can see how way back this would have been really nice detailing. It has, of course, the kind of elephantine look, full of wrinkles, but you can see that each one has a slightly different form of scale. As far as sauropods go, most enthusiasts are foot fetishists. Now, nothing excites me more when receiving a new model is to immediately go for the feet. And of course, for its time, look at these!
What are those?
A nostalgic reminder of how things used to be imagined. And then I acquired the 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 when I was a kid, and something I just couldn't believe was real when I first saw it in this Dinotopia book. 𝗲𝘂𝗀𝘀𝗀𝗃 is estimated to be 9 to 13 meters or 30 to 43 feet, so at 25 centimeters or 10 inches, this little thing is about 1 to 40 of scale. Now put together, whenever I was, through childhood, college, marriage, divorce, and back to singlehood, these have always gone together with me, trusty companions that reminded me of the dinosaurs I love, the amazing array of shapes and sizes, even in a large sauropod group. My favorite group of dinosaurs, and it all started here. Now before we get to my favorite Carnegie Collection model, there's an honorable mention. Now this is the only Carnegie Collection prehistoric mammal I own. This is the woolly mammoth. Believe it or not, this is the only mammoth I have in my collection. And for my interest in the proboscideans, the woolly mammoth is somehow one I was never really interested in. But I did want one, and having this one, I really have no reason to want another. You can see here, even for 2003, the texture, the furry coat. The regal pose. Just a very majestic appearance of the animal. The eyes are very carefully painted. With some effort made in the tusks, although the age, 20 years now, shows in the discoloration. And just a nice solid figure to have. In my opinion, it stands very well with the more recent proboscideans, such as my Eofauna Dinotherium and Paleoloxodon. And now, rounding up the top 10, has to be my very first model of my favorite dinosaur, Carnotaurus. Just look at that! The absolutely bizarre and frankly hideous rendition of an animal that was already outre on its own and now really highlighted. There was something about this freaky model that really won me over. What's really delightful is that even with the limitations of the day, attempt was made to capture some of the characteristics of each dinosaur. In the Carnotaurus here, you have the blunt horned head, the scutes along the sides, and even those arms. Now, they really capture the minuscule size of them. And even though this shoulder posture is suspect, there's no elbow bend, which is an offensive eyesore that many producers still insist on making. And look here at the fingers. The right is of course completely wrong. But in the left, you have the correct proportions, with the longest third digit, followed by the fourth, which is in fact the next longest, and then the other two. This is just so nice and so bizarre and so ugly that it's practically adorable. Now I should mention that Carnegie came out with this update, and this is a special model as it was given to me by someone very special to me at the time. It was certainly a very nice model to have, with updated proportions, except for maybe the legs. It was also the first time, alas, that I had to admit that 1/40th was something that Carnegie really wasn't going to hold on to as it tried to before. You can see the size difference between 1/40th and 1/30th really is immense. But we have still to go back to this. And something that really captures in one tiny package my favorite dinosaur, a valiant attempt to incorporate its anatomical peculiarities with the knowledge of the day and reflecting the technology of the time, while still having a nice paint application in a cute bizarre package. And again, if cute means ugly and adorable, this Carnegie Collection Carnotaurus is it. So that's it for my top 10 favorite Carnegies, of course with some massive, generous cheats. Doing this video really brings back a lot of happy memories. It's an example of something that's been a constant for a large part of my life. They've seen me through many important life stages and gave me much joy even in hard times. And most importantly, they were a tangible reminder to me never to lose my love and interest in dinosaurs. And even now, as I've done a lot more self-study, they're right there with me on my learning journey. So, I hope you've enjoyed this little trip back to the past, for some of you down memory lane, and for those of you old enough to remember these, you've had some of your own positive associations refreshed. I'll see you soon in the next video.